My guest today is largely known as a paradigm shifter in the golf industry, in particular in the coaching and instructional industry, and has been doing so for coming up on 3 decades, going back to when he was on the cover of Golf Digest in 1995, largely in part to his book known as The Path to Better Golf, which you can still buy on Amazon, and we will have a link to in the summary. His name is Peter Croker, and he has been teaching and involved in instruction in the PGA for more than 50 years and making a very, very big impact on the industry. We have a very, very interesting talk today as Peter is coming to the U.S. again. He will be here in mid-March for a month in the Hilton Head area, and then he's going to be in April, will be out in the Phoenix area doing some instruction in a number of schools, which I highly recommend you check out on his website. Also, we'll have the link down in the summary. And this instruction revolves mainly around the laws of accuracy. And it's something that Peter got involved in. It is his first dive into paradigm shifting when he came out with his Path to Better Golf was about the change in mechanics and how it differed from the norm and what was being taught in the golfing world then. And in the laws of accuracy, he gets into the 5 fundamentals on how somebody can become extremely accurate, extremely good, very quickly, regardless of skill level. And it revolves around the 5 principles of technique, repetition, target, shaping, and the laws of overlearning. Now, I'm not going to get into any of that here in the intro. I'm going to let Peter talk all about it as he is the expert. But I found it fascinating and interesting to say the least, and I'm sure that you will as well. So please give a big Golf 360 welcome to my guest today, the legendary golf instructor and coach, Mr. Peter Croker. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be asking yourself, what is Golf 360? And Golf 360 is a show that was designed to introduce you to people associated with the game of golf to help you improve not only at your game, but also your life. Almost all of our guests are from within the industry in some way, shape, or form, but some of the guests we have are from outside the industry, and it mainly revolves around the business world with a few others scattered in here and there. Now, all of the guests that we have a few things in common. 1, they all were highly successful and accomplished in their field. 2, each has something to pass along that will help you in your game and your life. And 3, they were all more than willing to give back by passing along the things that they use to help them in their career and even some of the mistakes that they made so that others don't make them in their journey. So I hope you find listening to them as enjoyable as I did interviewing them, and that each and every one of you benefits from the information that they so willingly and graciously pass along. This episode of the Golf 360 podcast is brought to you by Affinity Wealth Management Group. We all work exceptionally hard for our money, and none of us can afford to let that fall into the dark abyss of the big box financial service firms with their jack of all trades and master of none mantra, which basically means you become a number within a cookie cutter model, which is often accompanied by massive fees. Your future deserves more than average returns, and at Affinity Wealth Management, they ensure that your financial goals receive highly individualized, tailored attention from experts who are in the industry to be great and not average. As a client of Affinity Wealth, you will receive a customized solution to your customized life, keeping in mind your family's financial situation, values, and risk tolerance. Contact them today at 248-840-3863 or www.affinitywealthmg.com. Okay, there we are. I am with the world-renowned coach and teacher, instructor from basically almost halfway around the world, really, isn't it, Peter?
I'm down under. I'm on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, Australia.
Yeah, and I'm here in Hilton Head.
In a beautiful place you're in, and I'm not very far away from the beach or the golf course. I'm in my backyard, though. Yeah.
Well, you're going to be. It's great to have you. It's great that technology allows us to do things like this, and that we could get the timing right. It's morning there, and it's evening here, so it's perfect timing. But pleasure to have you on, and because you're going to be coming to Hilton Head in about 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. You're coming to the States in general, but you're going to be in Hilton Head about mid-March. Is that right?
Yeah, our first school is scheduled for the 20th of March at the Country Club of Hilton Head with John McMahon is the reason I'm coming over. It's his fault. He was a golf teacher and a student of mine when I was there when I came to Belfair when we opened up.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a daughter that's pretty good, and he said he wants me to give him some more information so I can make his daughter that extra special player.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Well, I'm anxious to see it, and it's. I mean, as we talked last week or week before, I remember I would just move back to Hilton Head in '95, I believe it was, when you were on the cover of Golf Digest. It's hard to believe that was 28 years ago.
Amazing, isn't it? That's at the time they said that the guys in Golf Digest said that they didn't have golf teachers or coaches on the cover. They were always tour players.
Mm-hmm.
But we had it was kind of a revolution. It upset a few of those on the other side of the ideas on golf, as we came along at a time when David Ledbetter was very strong, and he had the dog wagging the tail, the big muscles controlling the small muscles. And we came along and said, okay, no, the hands are the source of motion. They control the club, and we actually show how the hands, when used correctly, make the arms and the body do a good job. That's the body still works, but it's the hands. If you wanted to run fast, you wouldn't run fast with your hands. The faster you move your hands, the faster you can move your legs. So it's the hands control the speed and the direction in which you move this golf club, and hopefully it's in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
The ball. Yeah.
So what? Obviously, instruction in general, and in particular, you've always been on the cusp or the cutting edge of new things and research and development. And your teaching has come a long way since you were on the cover back then, and
Yes,
you've obviously
yes,
learned a lot since then. But I'm very curious to hear more about your laws of accuracy that you were telling me about, and you've sent me some information. It looks very intriguing, and I'm very anxious to hear, as I'm sure a lot of people are that are listening, a little bit more about it. Or so can you tell us what you've got going on now with that program?
Well, yes. Look, the evolution, from the revolution, as it was when we came along and told the world that golf's a pushing action, not a pulling action, and it's your hands that do the pushing, and that causes the feeling of pulling. It was hard. It's always been hard to teach a student the technique, the mechanics, without having them go out in the golf course and be stuck thinking about their golf swing. And we're always telling the golfer, play golf, don't play golf swing out there. Take a simple tuck it back slow and hit it. But as soon as you give someone a really interesting part about their backswing, they've been doing this, and all of a sudden you push this, and all of a sudden, and now they get so introverted that their golf scores don't help. So when I got back to Australia, I came back to here in 2004. It was about 3 days, and a TV guy saw me at the driving range and got me on his golf show. And about a week later, he said, "You got to meet this guy. This guy's got an unbelievable program on it, how to build accuracy." And the stories he told me, I thought, this can't be true. He said he had people that could hole 100 putts in a row from 10 feet. And he had one guy that they're going to take on the tour, that could hit out to 77 yards at 70 meters into a circle that was a 10-foot radius circle, and he could land it in there 95 out of 100 times from 77 yards. And so I thought, no, you can't do that. So I had to meet him, And instantly I saw that what he had to say had a lot of ability to translate, and so you could teach, whether it's a beginner golfer or a tour pro or another golf coach. Once you've got these laws of accuracy and you apply it to the mechanics, you can actually take a golfer that wants to get better and build them out and repair their, or build a golf swing, get rid of the old bad habits and replace it. And the interesting thing is you get results very quickly. It's not, you don't have to wait long. You see results at each session you work in.
Well, how would it differ? Is it a mechanical instruction? Is it a mental instruction? Is it a combination of both? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Okay. I can, yeah. The laws of accuracy, it's like a pyramid of different focuses. The first law of accuracy is technique. You got to have a technique that's going to be workable. So, a golfer, if I step back on the mat, and so the technique that's required is like, number one, if you came in and you had a breakdown, you have to build your technique. So the way we do that is whether one of my favorite teaching aids is a yardstick, because it teaches you really the technical alignment of impact.
Mm-hmm.
So the law of accuracy would say, do this drill 100 times perfectly. Arnold Schwarzenegger said lifting a weight once with full attention and intention is much more valuable than doing 100 lifts. Now, I didn't really appreciate what he was saying until I got to this drill, because when you do it, it's so easy to start getting distracted on something else, but to do it 100 or do it 10 times for a start, now just learning to do that, and then you put your other hand on and you learn. So that's the impact, you see.
Mm-hmm.
It's not this. So, and that action it's a hand controlled action. When the hand does this and this, it has a little magic on the left arm, left elbow. Ben Hogan wanted the elbows down. This is what causes it. One thing's try to keep your elbows in, like you put a towel under your armpits. That's putting your attention on the effect. The elbows are the result of how you use your hands. They're not. You don't try to keep your elbows in. What we discovered is the cause points to the mechanics. You learn that, you get a magic left through the ball. You won't get any chicken wing, and you won't get any disconnection here, and you won't get any rotor cuff problems, because it'll help. As you see the guys now, a lot of the guys are finishing a lot more around here than up here.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the laws of accuracy say, well, do that drill, do it with one hand, take your golf club. You won't probably see it. There's a black tee here in the mat. So what I do here is I just practice this. So the law of accuracy say, well, okay, you're applying accuracy to the drilling. Then, okay, once you feel okay, you've done that okay, you now introduce the ball. And you can, as you get the ball there, you see there's no breakdown. So you'd start with the drills to build the skill, so your technique becomes kind of automatic, and you build. What we've discovered in the process is if you apply the laws of accuracy and you start with the putt, and you build impacts, you build the impact zone for the whole golf swing, starting with the putt. When you can do that from a short distance, what's Sasha? Everyone say, why would you start? That's just ridiculous. Anyone can hold that. As a matter of fact, one of my students, golf tour player called Jason Norris, he's just turned 50, and he's been working with me on his putting because he was averaging 14 greens around playing the tour here in Europe. So that's a pretty high average, isn't it, for greens and
Very
regulation?
high, yeah. Better than tour average.
So he was top ball striker, but his putting was very ordinary but he started with me originally as he was the range boy at my driving range. So that's how I knew him from when he was a 16-year-old. Anyway, I've got one of these newfangled putters. I've got the original, but and it's got the weight under the grip. This has been fine tuned. This is the putter that I got 310 balls in a row in from 8 feet on Saturday. So I know, and someone say, "Oh, it's the putter." No, well, you want to have a good equipment, but this is not going to do it alone. You got to have the technique. So the law of accuracy would say, if I was putting, what sort of a putting stroke is the standard one that people tell you to make?
Shoulder stroke, in plane shoulder stroke.
Yeah, exactly. It would be called a pendulum stroke, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
From the stroke. And mostly I've heard is you take the hands out of it, keep the hands neutral. That's now Dave Pearl's with his book on putting. What he had a robot, didn't he?
Perfy.
What was the robot's name?
Perfy. Yeah.
Well, he set Perfy up with the putter, and he put him in the pendulum stroke, and he tested a 6-foot putt, didn't he, on a very good green? And how many out of 100 did Perfy get?
Something like 94, 96. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, 96 was the best he could do. So here's a robot, okay?
Mm-hmm.
From 6 foot on you wouldn't believe it, on Friday the 13th of January, I hold 226 putts in a row from 6 feet on a flat putt.
Is that, as you were describing the technique, is that a technique that is particular to the laws of accuracy program, or is it a technique that say any other putting instructor or swing coach could employ their technique with the fundamentals of the laws of accuracy?
Well, what I've done is I've tried the pendulum stroke. I've tried a lot of different grips and strokes. But basically what we discovered or uncovered was that the pendulum stroke is not a good way to putt. Most people have trouble putting. And most people have been introduced to the shoulder or the no hand action, locking the hands out.
Mm-hmm.
What we discovered was that if you look at the really good putters that there are a lot of good putters that practice a lot, but if you look through the impact zone, most of them have the putter very low. They don't come up. At the time, Pearls hit the ball on the upstroke, and well, the result was 96%, not 100%, from 6 foot. Now I've held 310 putts from 8 feet on a flat putt just on this last Saturday. It came by applying the laws of accuracy consistently. I started to redo this training for myself. Sasha said, "Look, Peter, if you believe in it and you teach people, but how about you do it and go through it properly?" So since December 16, that's 16, 30, 37 plus how many? What's the date today? The
13th.
14th. Oh yeah, 13th for you, 14th for me. You know, they tell me you can be assured the world's not going to end in America because it's already tomorrow here. So basically, where was I with the putting? Basically, a piston stroke is superior by so far that any golf from that's only from my not my opinion. It's been my experience, but if anyone that would like to test it, what the difference between a pendulum and a piston stroke is a piston stroke still has a pendulum. It's still pushing one hand against the other, so the shoulders work going back in harmony with the hands, but it's a hands controlled shoulders. You're not controlling it from the big muscles of the shoulders. You're pushing. What we came up with, I'll just see if I've got my, just let me see where it is. I'm pretty sure I've got it here. Yeah. A little bit. This is more, get a little closer to the camera. When we talk about hand controlled body, if I pull with this, that's a pulling action when I move my hand that way. Would you agree?
Yes.
I'd be pulling this, and if I move this hand this way, that's a pulling action.
Right.
But if I move this hand this way, it's a pushing action, right? This would be pulling it in. This would be pushing it out. This would be pushing it that direction. This would be pulling it back. Okay. Now it just happens the other hand does the opposite. It pushes that way and it pulls this way. Now, traditional golf was teaching us that you had to pull on the downswing, had to delay the hit. We came along and said, no, you try to you push. Now, the left hand can only push this far. The right hand can keep pushing, but if the left hand resists the right, the body turn does the rest of it and transports it forward. But as soon as you pull, the tendency is, and I know a lot of amateur golfers, when they pull, they get blocked here. And it's simple, can be cured by getting educated on how to push with the left hand. So I've got a thing in the car that I've got some discs that if I was to stand on those discs, probably should have had them out here with me now, but I have to take a break and get it. But no, basically a pushing idea, when you push back with this hand and you push against it, you engage the body pivot. And it starts with the putter. If you're not, the big dilemma for golfers is we all want to go straight to the full swing and start throwing it out. And we haven't really consolidated. This is why we're coming to America to actually show people and to deliver these schools free in Hilton Head area, just before and after the Masters. And we teach you to push. And this is where the piston stroke comes in. You push going back, left against right, and the shoulders work. So it becomes a pendulum action. Now, you push coming down, you push the right against the left, and the shoulders come back so far. But now, instead of pushing it and just going up here, what we do now is we just let the right hand go down and the right arm straighten. And the way we use the left hand here stops this, the old chicken wing, because when you pull through here, the head moves. So anyone that's been playing golf and have a tendency to look up too soon, when you learn to push, your head is locked. My head doesn't want to move. Whereas with a pendulum stroke, you see at the head, it's pretty hard to keep your head still. It's a force, you have to force it and drill it. So pendulum is not on it's not in our deal. We replace it with a piston stroke, and we learn to hit the ball just a short distance first. And Gary Player, Billy Casper, David Graham, Kel Nagle, they're guys that I know that hit the puck. And when I was in the States last time, it was lovely. I gave a few lessons, and one guy I gave a lesson to up at Westchester was on the putting green, and I had him this far from the hole, and he was just, this is before I knew that, I didn't know about the laws of accuracy at this time. I only knew about that when I went home. So I'm there, and he's putting it, and after a while he stretches, and it's on the old back. He's been over there for about 20 or 30 putts. And he looks around, and there's Ben Crenshaw putting over there. And he looks at him, he looked at him, and he goes, he went like this. He said, I never saw it before, but Ben Crenshaw's hitting his putts. It's not, even though he's got this smooth stroke, at the bottom there's a little acceleration. And the putter's not coming up. Now, so at that stage, I was teaching what was at the time that my best effort at a piston stroke, but we've really upgraded it how the left hand really works now to make it more structure through here, and so that you can hold a lot of putts in a row from 6 feet, 10 feet. But it was Olin Brown said, he said, I've never noticed that before. He said, even Ben Crenshaw, who's regarded as the best pendulum stroke, he's actually got a bottom of the swing where it stays down for a little longer. And that's where as you see, I'm pretty excited about this discovery.
You had mentioned when we were talking before we came on, there was a fella, I mean, you'd worked a little bit with Brett Rumford, and you were talking about a fella that was able to hit, was it 77 yards? Was that the distance? He could get 90 plus shots inside of a 5 foot or 8 foot circle.
It was a 10-foot radius circle, right? 10 foot radius. Actually, it was 2.5 meters, which is just a bit over 8 feet. So it was inside 10 feet radius, but just for rough sake, a 20-foot circle diameter. He was able to get 94 or 95 out of 100 to land in the circle and stop in the circle. He was out on a football field, so it wasn't a green at the time, but he was just learning to hit the ball, carry it. As Sasha said, it's the distance you carry the ball is what you've got to really be able to accurately know. Then it's a case of hardness of green and the spin. And
through that, the first fundamental of the laws of accuracy or technique, is that a particular technique that's taught through the system, or is it some that like of the short game guys who are really, really good coaches out on the tour and in various parts of the world? You got Rumford and James Seekman here in the U.S., and then the one fellow who's in the U.K. What is his name? He's got the wedge matrix. Very, very good.
I look, there's certainly different, because when you get to playing pitch shots, you just don't have a fairness impression. You've got shots, you've got pitch and runs.
Yes, and, I guess what I'm getting at is if you're working with a world-class coach, can you can still utilize these laws of accuracy and the technique that coach employs with you?
Definitely, you can. And what Sasha and I discovered was that if your technique is a little bit armsy, and your arms cross your body this way, rather than stay in front of your body. Then there's more, when you get to your longer shots, there's more strain on the joints, whether it's the shoulders, the elbows, or the back, or the hips, wherever someone's weakest. When you've got a swing that goes across your body with your arms, in other words, if there's some sort of pulling action, while the hands and arms stay in front of your body, and I think most of the great golf coaches that I know, they advocate they want the arms more here. They don't want them, you know, Jim Furyk and Matthew Wolff. Well, we already know that Jim Furyk's a superstar, but he had many injuries over the time because it does put a lot more strain on your joints when you get a little bit off path. But a good coach, they won't be very far off of keeping the hands in front of the body. Do you know any good coaches that swing the arms across the body very much they're in the top line?
No. I guess most of anything that comes across the body would be where let's say that the bomb mechanics, meaning that the arms are shorter than the height. The arm, the plane of the lead arm would fall under the shoulder plane. That would appear to be more across the body. I guess technically it's not really across as much as it is on a lower plane.
That's it. Yes, it's if your arm goes this way, that'll be a pulling action, and that has a tendency, as you get to longer shots, to put more strain on the joints.
Mm-hmm.
While the right hand and arm stay in front of your body throughout the backswing and the downswing, that's where we're say that it requires an orientation of pushing a little bit to do that. But the great coaches, whether they do drills and they put the club on here and the student learns to basically coordinate the hands and arms. So I don't see any of the really great golf coaches in short game and long game that don't basically coordinate the hands, arms, and body. I don't see anyone just swinging the arms, and there are especially shots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can hit a shot here, and just basically give it the old propeller. And that's a specialty shot. And great coaches have. I was with Brett Runford this last week, and in exchange for the putting lesson I gave him, he gave me some wonderful little pitch shots that he could spin the ball. In my career, I've been around enough to actually I had to look after Bobby Locke when he came out to Australia for a week. As he said, Monster, he said, there are no bad greens, there are only bad putters. Anyway, it was phenomenal to see him hit pitch shots. He could hit a low hooking pitch shot and put backspin on it, and Brett Runford showed me how to do that the other day, really to a high level. So I'm looking forward to putting the laws of accuracy to work on that.
So James Ridyard was the other fella I was thinking of. So let's say that there's three very good players. One of them goes to Brett, one of them goes to James, and one of Seekman, and one of them goes to James Ridyard. So you have three different instructors working with, let's say that they're working with three LPGA players, each one of them. But they can all utilize the laws of accuracy system within their technique of teaching.
Correct.
Okay.
The laws of accuracy, the beautiful thing is the student will discover, and the coach along the way, with what good coaches do. They customize for that student. But the laws of accuracy will allow, because what happens is you get to a certain level where you can't go past, like, say it's pitching, and the student can pitch out to 20 yards, land it in the circle, and stop it in the circle on a green 100 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
They go to 25 yards, and all of a sudden they can't. So that's when the student and the teacher look at the technique and see what, and that's why a good coach will say, oh, your grip, you need a little work on your grip or your stance. It'll be very basic stuff, and then they'll refine that within what they're teaching, and then they'll go, oh, now they get to 25. And by the time they get to 50, there might be another thing. It might be that their body's not quite, the laws of accuracy allow the coach and the student to evolve and find the best technique for them to hit that golf ball to the target. I was on the practice fairway on Friday afternoon after the second round, and Brett Rumford was 6 under par, and he'd had a quadruple bogey in that. He hit there was a short par 3 that was a wedge, and the pin was just tucked right over this bunker about 15 feet behind the bunker. And he hit this beautiful shot, and it plugged under the lip of the bunker.
Mm.
And it was a steep face bunker. He hit it, went down to the bottom, then he got in a bad lie down there, and when he pitched to go out of the bunker, it landed in his footprints.
Oh.
He had to take a drop, knocked it on the green and 2-putted for a 7, and was still 6 under. But alongside of him, the guy that was practicing was Mike Hendry, who finished that day. On the second day, he'd shot 62 around a 72 par championship golf course, fantastic course, and he'd shot 64 the first round because the weather it wasn't windy, Brett Rumford had his TrackMan out at the end of his session. He had his irons, and now he's on the driver, and he was getting about 162 mile an hour ball speed, and Mike Hendry's just starting to put his driver away, and he's a big 6'4" guy, 6'3", and like strong as. Anyway, I said, look, Brett, would Mike just hit a couple of drives? I'd love to see on the TrackMan what speed he swings at. And he came over, and before he hit a ball, I asked him, Mike, you've just had 62 and 64. I said, what's more important? Is it more important to hit the ball in the fairway and be 20 or 30 yards or 40 yards short of a guy that's down, or where you could go down the fairway, but maybe in the rough? He said, no. He said, Peter, my iron play requires, he said, I feel my iron game is really good because I can get the distance right. I hit my irons, I know how far. And he said, I would rather be in the fairway 20 or 30 yards short, hitting a 6 iron into a green rather than up there hitting an 8 iron out of the rough. He said, I know I can hit the 6 iron closer and safer on a more. So then he steps up with his driver. I'm thinking, okay, he's going to get 120 mile an hour club head speed here, no problem. He swings it, the ball travels. He gets about 168 mile an hour ball speed out of, it was 1.5 something smash factor, and it was about 112 mile an hour. He said, I can pump it up. So I said, okay, well, pump one up for me. So he hit one with what I thought was pretty strong, 116.6 mile per hour, 172 mile an hour ball speed.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, I'd rather hit it flush in the middle with the driver and do that on a regular basis. So he said, I never go at it 100%. He said, I believe, he said, I know for myself, he says, I play better golf on a consistent basis when I'm just hitting the ball, hitting the middle of the bat with a driver. And he said 172 mile an hour ball speed is pretty good. But these days you got guys out there he'll play with guys that hit 30 yards past him. Yeah. But anyway, that's a different story. That's the laws of accuracy still apply there. You got accuracy hit the middle of the bat, and there's the program extends its way all the way out to the driver. And I've worked with
And how many
like that.
levels within the foundations of the laws of accuracy are there? So there was technique was one. What would the others be?
The second law of accuracy has to do with repetition. You repeat the drill, and then you repeat hitting balls into the target. So you've got to hit the
Mm-hmm.
target, and hitting the target, as soon as you miss, you got to go again, and it's 100. When you get 100 in a row at that distance, you qualify to go to the next distance. 99 doesn't do it, because the laws of accuracy are there to teach you the mental game as well. It helps big time, as I'm discovering. Yeah.
And do you see that for different levels that there's seems to be a range that they seem to get to before they can't get 99 out of 100? In other words, is it 50 yards? Is it 100 yards? Or where does the mountain seem to dip the other way, where even some of the best players can't seem to get past?
Well, let's just go to the putter, okay?
Okay.
On Tuesday at the Victorian Open, I ran a competition. The Victorian Golf Australia and the PGA gave me the okay to run a putting competition, and I was offering $1,000 to any and every golf player that could hole 100 putts in a row from 6 feet. Now, the green was pretty flat. I put the balls around the green. I didn't put it just in one straight line on a rope, which is the first level of training. I put it in a circle, a 6-foot radius circle, and $1,000 for anyone that could hit 100, or everyone. But I also said, if no one gets 100, then there's a consolation prize. The one that gets the most number in a row is $500. So, how many got 100 out of 100 from 6 feet?
I bet there weren't 3. I bet there wasn't one.
There wasn't any. No, not one. No, I had 34 of the professionals that were playing in the tournament go through the program. So, and unfortunately, Brett Rumford wasn't one of them, because there were 2 putting greens. He was waiting on the other putting green while I was on this other one. So, but I caught up with him the next day. But 2 days later. No, the next day. Anyway, that was on a Tuesday. What the most number of holding putts in a row was?
In a row?
Yeah, like it was
16.
Say that again.
16.
16, right? No, it wasn't 16.
Maybe 10.
It wasn't 10.
Less. Wow. 6.
No, 9. A pro that plays the Japanese tour, and he had a beautiful beautiful routine. He focused every putt, and he got behind it, and he was. There were a few that had good routines, but a lot of them didn't have what I call a stable routine going to the 6 foot. Anyway, he did. He confronted every putt, but 9. He got 9, and he missed on the 10th. I was a little worried. I thought he was going to go get the 100. My money. Anyway, no, he got the 500. But you were saying, where does it break down? It breaks down right there. It's no point to me. This is what I really believe. People say they want to be more consistent. Until you can consistently get out to at least 6 feet and hit 100 in a row in the hole, from 6 feet with a putter.
Mm-hmm.
And the pitching, we start at 1 yard. So we have 1 yard, and we have a target that's 2.5 meters. It's 8-foot radius. and you've got to land the ball in the circle and stop in the circle. Now, I just got, this was the original book. So now I would, from my experience and teaching people, I've had some students that work with us. My son was one, and a fellow called Reese Harris was another one that wanted to be on the tour. And they got out to 20 yards where they could land the ball in the circle and stop in the circle.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't happen the first day. Okay. It took a number of weeks before. But boy, when they went out in the golf course, their scores came down significantly, and it improved their driving. The crazy part is when you improve your putting. Jason Norris, a couple of weeks back in the tournament at Rosebud, I gave him a lesson, and he went out the next day, and he just said he nearly holed on par 5. He nearly holed 2 iron shots coming in. He felt like he improved his putting, and it affected his golf, his full swing. Yeah, that's there's none in print now. That's the only one I've got. And that's our book called It, and it's for those that they always travel with me. Those two.
So you've got as the first foundation, you have technique. What would be the well? How many layers are there in the laws of accuracy?
Right. The first is technique. The second is repetition.
Repetition. Okay.
Repeat the drill until it becomes second nature on one side, 100 times or whatever in a row. The next thing is you repeat it, hit it into a target. And when you get 100 in a row at one distance, you move to the next distance. Now, the next thing is you have to have a target. So the third law of accuracy is have a target. The fourth law is to do with what we call shaping.
What is it called?
Down, shaping, S-H-A-P-I-N-G, shaping, yeah. And that is a situation where you put a distance down, like with a pitch shot or a chip shot, you start at 1 yard. Now this target here is 2 yards away, and it's not the full big circle, but it's soft grass. But now, if I'm working with a beginner golfer or a golfer that's got a problem with their pitching, I don't start at 1 yard. I start at 1 foot. So they get a hula hoop and 1 foot away, and the idea is to carry it over the edge and stop it in the hula hoop. So when they just a sec. Give me a sec. I'll just see who's and everything's okay. Yep. I'm in my backyard, and I thought someone was at the front door. Sorry.
Yeah, so for some of the people listening on a podcast app, I highly recommend you check out the YouTube, because Peter's illustrating some of these things you need to see it on the video. So for anybody out there that's just listening to the audio, you need to check out the video too, and we'll have that on YouTube.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, no technique, repetition. Repeat the drills and repeating balls to short distances, and that's where the shaping comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's no good trying to go out that 10 or 20 yards if you can't hit it 1 yard consistently to a target. Mm-hmm. It's no good hitting it 1 yard if you can't do that. Make it less. And there's a principle behind this. A very important one, and it has to do with Sasha's previous training. He became a martial artist, and it just by accident. He said he was at university studying to be a psychologist, at the age of 19, and he had the holidays, like big holidays, and his sister cut out an advertisement to go to learn kung fu. And he went into Chinatown here in Melbourne, and he didn't know who was the coach, but he went in there, and it just so happened that the coach was the sensei for Bruce Lee. He'd come down from Hong Kong to get away from the bad people up there, and he'd set up his dojo in Chinatown in Melbourne, and so Sasha went up to him and said, "How long will it take me to be able to fight in the Australian Championships?" And William Chong said, about 3-5 years if you'd really come every day. He says, because you've got to be a black belt to fight in these open division things. And Sasha said, "Look, I want to do it. I've got 7 months. I want to do it the next championship." He said, "No way." Anyway, they made an agreement, and he's a very thorough sort of guy, Sasha, and he went in there 8 in the morning till 10 at night, 6 days a week. And 7 months later, he fought in the Australian Championship, lost in the semi-final in the welterweight division, not pretty heavy division. He lost to a guy that won. And then they have a repechage. The guy that loses the other semi-final, they fight off to see who's going to run third for the bronze medal. So anyway, Sasha won so he finished third. But in the process, he was learning a lot that he turned into this book, The Laws of Accuracy. He then decided he didn't want to fight anymore. He didn't like to hurt people, and so he didn't like to get hurt either. So he was wandering around, and he had this dream. He said, Wagner, who's Wagner? And he searched. Oh, he's an opera. He writes operas. He said, "That's what I've got to do. I've got to learn how to sing." So today, Sasha owns the Australian Touring Opera Company, the only private opera company in Australia. And he's done operas in Australia and in Italy and in England.
Mm-hmm.
But out of that training in music, he says, the scales, he said, a concert pianist, they play the scales every day. They just do the basic stuff. He says, and this laws of accuracy is your basic stuff. He says your technique is the scales. Repetition, your target, you do them so many times correctly. When you've done enough of them correctly, you then move to your next thing. The next thing is you shape it. You just do it in little pieces until you can do it, that you can blend the pieces. And then the next part is what we call the fifth law is the law of overlearning. Now, that's a very powerful law. You've probably heard the old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, overlearning means if very basic. My first stage is to carry it over this target and I've got to land 100 balls in this area here. Might give myself a little bit bigger area. I've got to land it between 1 foot and 2 foot. Now, I can do 100 times today. Now, tomorrow I come back, I've got to do 5 from this distance before I move to the next distance. So I'll go from 2 foot and land it at between 2 and 3 feet, or 2 and 4 feet. So when I can get 100 in a row at that distance, the next day I come back, I must do 5 in a row between 1 and 2 feet, or 1 and 3 feet. Carry over the 1 foot initial barrier. The next day, I must do, and I must on the same day do 5 over this one, then 5 over the next distance, and then when I can get 100 in a row at the next distance, progressively every day you go out further, like with putting, my target today is 8 foot 8 inches. I want to get 100 in a row from 8 foot 8 inches. Well, before I get to 8 foot 8 inches, I've got to hit, I do 3 putts in a row at each distance. If I don't get 3 in a row, I stay there until I get 3 in a row before I move back. I got 4 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches, all the way out. But that overlearning is a very powerful training. It takes you more into the automatic stage. So it puts you above the mechanics. So that's all in this book. That's and we've got all this in our program, in the Breaking 80 program. We go through all this stuff.
And who is it? So the name of the book is Laws of Accuracy. And what was the gentleman's name that was the author?
Sasha Yuganovsky is his name, but he's not reprinting the book. We're going to put it into a video form and put it up on the internet in a program, so that it'll be part of our online stuff. So if people want it, they'll be able to get it, because it's no good just having a book and reading it and then using it wrongly. You give the product a bad name. So this is too powerful. It needs guidance, and make sure people use it properly. So that's.
So it sounds like it's a system that breaks it down to the most essential fundamental of doing something at a very small level and getting expertise in that, and then building upon that foundation as you stretch out the distance. Is that somewhat correct?
That is 100% correct. And when we come to Hilton Head, the first 2 days we'll go through the putting, chipping, pitching, and bunker play. The next 2 days we'll build consistency, and the 5th day, well, the next 2 days will be consistency, and you'll get introduced to effortless power. So you'll find how the power comes in in being able to do the technique easily rather than trying to use muscle force. So the more accurate you become, the more distance you have easily available. So you build power from a technique base rather than from muscular base.
How much of a challenge is it in today's world of everybody wants things right away, that it is to get them to buy into something like the Laws of Accuracy, where they want to go out and let's say you have a 18 handicap and they want to go out and they want to go to the range and try to hit the ball 300 yards because that's what they watch all the players on TV do. So how much of the challenge is to get through them mentally? Look, start out at hitting a putt that's 6 inches long and let me see you make 100 in a row. And it seems like it'd be somewhat difficult to get them to do that and understand that that's going to help them hit drives straighter and even longer.
Well, that's human nature. This program this program is only for those that really want to get good. If you want to keep bad, just do everything else that you've been doing, and don't. To become any good, you got to do what the good people do. There's no, we're not in the medical profession where we're going to give a drug. Okay, It's unfortunately your general practitioner in medicine knows that the human race they come in sick, and they're not going to take a good diet. They're not going to do exercise. And that's particularly in our Western society, not quite so in a lot of Asians, but the same. Human nature is such that this program this works, and it's for those. You've got to apply the secret of the universe to make this one go.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the secret of the universe is, don't you?
No, that's going to be my next question.
It's very simple. Nothing works unless you work. Nothing works. Nothing works unless you work. Doesn't matter how good it is. If it's sitting on the shelf and you're not using it, it ain't going to happen.
Mm-hmm. That's not
You
going to
can't
be
sit.
magic.
You can't sit. You can't sit in the chair and visualize it and think it's going to happen. That visualization stuff. When you do this here, after a while, you can visualize the shot because you've played them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's how Ben Hogan got it. That's how everyone I know that's been any good got it. You know, Greg Norman was in my brother's class in school. And when before he turned pro, he came to me. I was assistant pro champion in Victoria. He came over to my place as a 16-year-old to have dinner. He said, "Peter, what do I have to do?" I said, "Greg, you're doing a great job. All you have to do is keep doing it and don't stop." And that's when he was assistant pro, he turned assistant pro shortly after, and he was at Royal Queensland Golf Club, and they stopped him using the practice fairway from the members' end. He had to go down the other end and hit from the other end where the grass wasn't anywhere near as good, but they wouldn't. He dug up the practice fairway too much.
Wow.
So and Peter Senior, all the guys that I grew up with, you know, David Graham,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they were workers. But anyway, it's not when you do this. It's a lot of fun when you get results. It's not a labor of it's a labor of love, not a labor of. You don't do something because you hate it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Exactly.
you know, but there are a lot. The world. There's something I'd reckon everyone should that wants to be on the path to mastery, and this path. There's a book by George Leonard. It's an audio book. You can look it up on YouTube. It's called Mastery, Mastry, by George Leonard. And there are a couple of guys that the code. What was it? The code. It's to do with a guy out of New York wrote a book on how to become what all these where all these top players where they were coached around the world, whether it was in music or in scholastic or was in tennis.
Well, you had there was the Sports Gene, and then there was David Epstein wrote that, and then you had Malcolm Gladwell that wrote the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah, and then there's this other guy. What's it called? Anyway,
Josh Whiteskin.
Yeah, no. The one that I would recommend above all the others I've read and listened to is Mastery by George Leonard. And there's a couple of guys that have got a 10-minute summary of that. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
And one's a foreign guy, but he can't spell. He writes a few things in it, and he spells different words wrong. But don't worry about that. The message is really clear. And mastery requires a step-by-step approach. It requires you to make sure that you don't do too many things at once. You just go, but you take it easy. Don't rush it. Now, in 5 days, people say, I've been said, most people come to a 3-day school. That's too much. Well, 5 days, the first 2 days of our school are dedicated to the short game. So if someone wants to come for 2 days, we're only taking 6 people in each school.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to try the 2 days, but if we get 6 people that will go the 5 days, well, the people that have got the 2 days, I'll have to find some other time to do it because I'm in Hilton Head for about a month. But we've got three 5-day schools. Ideally, people do the first 2 days are on putting, chipping, pitching, and bunker play, and building the laws of accuracy around that, which is the foundation for the next 3 days, which is consistency and power. And the final day is kind of going over and making sure customize it to each person, so that we make sure they go away with a clear head and not too many blisters. Yeah. See, yeah, you don't get blisters when you do it the right way and you do it easy, and you take time to smell the flowers while you're doing it.
Hey, you've always had, from when I met you at Long Cove many years ago. I was just a young kid, but when you were on, as we talked earlier, the ideas that you could come up with Path to Better Golf 28 years ago were different than what the establishment of the coaching and instruction business was doing.
Totally the opposite. Yeah.
Yes.
The opposite.
This seems to be, it's not like it's going against the grain or anything, but it seems to be different from what a lot of other people are teaching. And you have a knack for finding things that seem to work, that seem simple yet very effective. Do you do that in everything, or is it?
Well,
it's not like
I'm people think I'm a bit, I'm out there. No, I'm just looking for the truth. If someone says don't go there because so and so, it's like I'll say, why? Well, I'll go and have a look. See, a lot of people listen to other people, but they never go and look for themselves. There's one thing here, another book that's just I'm into now, which is fantastic. I'll just bring it up here. The second, hang on, what is it called? Let's go back to it. The Art of Possibility. The Art of Possibility. It's an audio book. Mastery by George Leonard is an audio book. Those, and there's another one called Your Invisible Power. But I would, Mastery, I look it up on YouTube. The short version is 10 minutes. These two guys, the Talent Code is the one I was thinking about. Talent Code.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, he went round the world. The New York newspaper or something, one of the big magazines up in New York, sent him on a around the world to go to talent hotbeds. How come you get so many great artists out of Italy? What happened there? How come the tennis players were out of Russia? They finished up at a camp down in Florida, of course, because they wanted to get out of it. It was nice and warm and what have you. But they originated as little kids, and where they grew up, where they got their foundation, it was just a little one court, tennis court, terrible place, had a little bit of an indoor area, and Safin and Wanakova, they all came out of this little place. And when guy wrote the Talent Code, he did a great job. Anyway, what he discovered was the same as he went up this upstate New York music place. He interviewed one of the professors, and he said, "Well, he said, how do you make these people?" He says, they just repeat. They repeat a note, and he says, someone walking past the outside can recognize the music that they're playing. They're playing it too fast.
Wow.
So
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, when you want to do something well, you've got to do it very small. Make it easy. Good golf is easy. Life is meant to be easy. Not. We had one of our famous prime ministers here. He said life wasn't meant to be easy. Well, no, I'm the opposite. Golf is meant to be easy. So do it easy, and it'll be difficult if you miss the steps. It always is, because there are only 3 barriers to learning. Once you're willing to learn, there's only 3 barriers. I ask this quite often, and I'll ask this right here. we'd been to the school of hard knocks, but when you went to school, primary school and high school, did you ever come across a subject called how to learn? How to learn?
No.
Isn't that crazy? What would be the most important subject that anyone could ever study?
Yeah.
How to learn.
How to learn should be the first one.
It should be in every class every day. And you should have a check sheet at each stage. That's why the world's in such a mess. There's so much misunderstanding. The only problem in the world is misunderstanding. But we don't want to have it in golf anymore. That's why I'm coming back to America.
Mm-hmm.
I found the path to mastery. Originally, I found the mechanics that were learnt, but that was too revolutionary. So now we've got an evolution. We've evolved it into a way that you can learn it and become good, whatever level you want to take it to. Person that's only going to play once a week, well, at least they're on a pathway, and they'll just take a lot more years to get there. I was going to say there's 3 barriers to learning. The first barrier, once you're willing to learn, is not having the steps. Not just not having the steps, they've got to be in the right sequence. That's where the laws of accuracy comes in. The steps have to be there, laid out. If it's 100 steps, so be it. If it's only 10, that's fantastic, but they don't want to be so wide apart that you can struggle to get to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So step by step. The second barrier to learning is trying to do too many steps at once. That's where this laws of accuracy, you stay at the one step until you can do it, and do it out of your mind pretty well. You'll still be stuck in the mind a bit because we're human, but we all like to think. Okay, so the first barrier is not having the steps and not in the right sequence. So our program, the Croker Golf System, is the right steps. We've got enough of them, and they're in the right sequence. And they're all based on cause and effect. The cause is in educated hands, controlling the arms, controlling the body. The third barrier to learning is the misunderstood word or concept in the subject that you're studying. Now in golf, I asked when I was doing when I was over there first time round, got the Cover Golf Digest, I did quite a few PGA seminars.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first questions I asked of all the people in the audience that says impact. And the first question is, okay, is impact important? And of course, yes, it's important. Okay, so I'd ask them, who would like to come up and show me the ideal impact position? Not very many people want to come up. When they did, it was amazing when they asked, okay, at impact. I'll ask this question on here so people will get to see, because if I use a word and don't thoroughly define it, then I leave a person in a confusion, in a mystery. So the word impact, if I'm going this direction, so the camera would be at right angles to me pretty well. Ideally, you want to set up the ball straight with a parallel stance. We'll just go standard. We're not cutting it, we're just hitting a straight ball. You want the shaft to point at the middle of your hips. You don't want it to point over at your left groin. You don't want it to point up here, a la Norman. You don't want to point it down here like Hubie Green and Fuzzy Zola. But you want it to ideally point at your belt buckle when the shaft is horizontal to the ground and you're standing upright. Now, when you bend, you just don't drop and change your wrist angle. This position, the wrist is in what we call neutral. It's not uncocked and it's not cocked. And when you push it down opposite your belt buckle, it's a certain distance away, whether it's the pitching wedge or sand wedge or the lob wedge I got there, or the driver. People say, how far should you stand from the ball? Well, this is the way in our address routine that allows you to get the right distance. So whether I got the driver, it's still there. Now, when I bend from the hip now, I don't drop this club. I just bend from the hip socket, not from the not from the chest, not from the waist, but from the hip. The driver's out there, and I unlock my knee. That's where the driver would sit. Now, if I take the wedge, it's the same distance. You've got the same relationship, the shaft to the arm and the arm to the body. So you'll have the same feel in the swing, whether you're swinging the driver or the wedge or anywhere in between, and you'll have the right distance to the ball measured out through this address routine that we have. Impact. The impact to the word impact. Before you get impact, you've got to have the address. So there you are at address. Now, impact. If you watch Tiger Woods at impact, I'd say he'd be somewhere like that. He's a bit younger than me, but I'm pretty flexible, so it'd be down there. His shoulders would start off right shoulder a little bit lower. At impact, the shoulders would be a lot lower. And ideally, at the moment of impact and through the impact zone, you'd want your shoulders to be no more than square. You don't want to have them open. They will go open very quickly, but not at the beginning of impact. You want them here, not here. Now, you want the right hip at the beginning of impact to stay in the same place. You don't want to have it off. Now, when you do that, now your body is being pushed into a position by the hands. If I go the wrong way, then I get the wrong impact. So I've got to come in from the inside. And so the impact zone is an area here where they talked about Mo Norman and Lee Trevino and Ben Hogan, that they could have an impact area like a flat spot in the swing that would last about 12 inches. So when you hit the ball really well, you're going to stay what we call, you stay in the shot. You can press that ball in the shot. Now, you probably saw where that one finished, Pete.
Saw it take off pretty good.
Yeah, it finished about a 6 inches away from that line. Yeah, just pushed it a whisker. But the impact zone is a very important word. But that third barrier, which is the misunderstood word, so many people think a lot. I should say a lot of beginner golfers and high handicappers think that impact's the same as address. Get the hips back to the same place. I don't know. I can't believe that how many people I ask the question at the driving range, and of course most of them haven't thought about it very much. They have to think about it, and then they say, "Where should? Oh, I want to bring it back to where I was at address." That's so. The words need to be thoroughly defined. The big thing is, if the words are not understood, you probably had this with students. I saw it when Paul Runyan came down, and I brought him for a teaching tour of Australia. He was fantastic. It was fantastic for me, but when he started to talk angles, you could see the eyes glaze over on a lot of the people in the audience when we did clinics. And you start to see them yawning, and they turn away, lose their concentration. If you use words or concepts that people don't really thoroughly know, they get lost. They go blank. There's a little test I like to put on somebody, and would you like to take a test on words with me? It's a very simple golf question, Pete.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, you might have heard this question while I was there last time. The question was, or is it true that when the crepuscule arrives, most golfers play worse? Is that true or false?
When the what arrives?
As a coach, as a teacher in class, hadn't you ever been? Didn't teacher ever say, "Weren't you listening to me?" And I tell you what I'll do for you, buddy. If you can duplicate the question I just asked you, then you can have your best friend or your worst enemy. You can have him or her as a student at my school when I come there.
It's usually one and the same.
Okay, so see how close you go to duplicating that question I just asked.
It was when the word I didn't hear was it sounded almost like when the fescue arrives, do golfers play better or worse?
Okay, you were listening. That's great, but you didn't duplicate the question, did you?
No.
So I'm sorry, you don't win the prize. But now I'm gonna just change one word and just number one, see how much better you hear me. Because if you can't hear me, it's pretty hard to answer the question. But
Exactly.
this is the problem in golf. There are 15 main words in the golf mechanics. 15 major ones: grip, stance, backswing, downswing, impact, follow through, finish, body turn. There's 8. You might add waggle, forward press. There's 10. And then the word release, 11. Okay, there's another 4. But I'll repeat. I'll change that question by just changing one word. See how close you go. 1, to being able to repeat the question. Number 2, having an answer that makes sense to you, not to me, but to you. The question I asked was, is it true that when darkness arrives, most golfers play worse? Is that true or false?
False.
Why is that?
They play the same. Doesn't matter if it's dark or light.
Now, is that in regard to hitting the ball or scoring? Just imagine going
hitting the ball. Hitting the ball.
Yeah. So your interest is in good contact and hitting good golf shots. So it doesn't really matter. You can still see the ball pretty well in the dark, can't you? Just at the bottom. But if you're going to score around Old South, for instance, how would your score go when it got dark? Would you play better or worse or the same?
Well, if it's so dark that you can't see anything, you're going to play worse because you don't know where you're going. But if it's a full moon and you can at least see the outline of the fairway, I think I've played it enough that if it's a good day and I'm hitting it straight, then I can walk down the middle of the fairway and eventually find it.
Yeah,
so that's a long answer.
No, but that's a good answer for you. See, but for someone that really is into scoring and handicap and they're a high handicapper, of course they're going to say when darkness arrives, I'll play worse. But for a person that really likes to strike the ball, they probably focus better and hit the ball better when it's darker because they're not worried about where it goes. That's why hitting in the simulators is quite good.
It's interesting you bring that up because I remember as a kid playing with my dad, and we would always play the local course. We tee off in the evening. We'd always play 9 holes a couple nights a week. It was always in the evening because it was less expensive for me, but I progressed very quickly. And as I got better, he was trying to educate me on things that we were talking about today in his own way. And we would almost always play the last hole in the dark. And you couldn't see where you hit it. So you were focused on what was in front of you because that's all you could see. And I would always hit very close to the middle, and I would almost always chip in or make a long putt on the last hole.
Isn't that fantastic? See,
and that's what he would try to get through to me. I kind of felt like Danny Noonan and Ty Webb in Caddyshack, where he's telling me to be the ball.
Oh, what a great show! They got to be the ball, Danny. Yeah. Can you see that there's so many levels that a golfer needs to be exposed to get to become better, and if you can do it with a system, that's what I was after, was to try to give a step-by-step system. And our Breaking 80 program, which we do on the internet, I do that we have Zoom sessions like this every Tuesday, which today is. We do 3 of them. It's all the same lesson, but as well, they got the videos to watch at home, and then they got the Facebook group where they can go in and post their drills and stuff. But by having step-by-step, it allows a student to really, go on a journey And like
Hmm.
we're there for the journey, aren't we?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. So we want to take people with us. That's the deal. It's a journey, and it's a journey for a lifetime, really, because golf you can play. And I'm planning on playing it. Uh, One of my oldest student is 97. Okay,
Wow.
and I had one in New York, Dr. Vincent Gadice. He was 94. He got on a plane and flew down to Melbourne, Florida when I did a school there. He was the life of the party, 94. And he'd been a doctor, a surgeon initially, and a back surgeon. But then he found
Hmm.
a needle that he could put an injector uh, a herb into the back and repair a very high dosage of vitamin C in it, and it would repair the discs. And he found that he was able to get about a 90-odd% success rate in people that had ruptured discs. But
Wow.
when at the same time in New York, a surgeon was getting about a less than a 20% success rate. And he tried to get the surgeons there to go his route, but his route, it cost the person that was getting repaired $1,000 for a month's treatment. They had to go every week for a month, whereas the surgeons were charging $27,000 for a 1 hour or less operation. So it never got through the bookkeeper never let it in.
Wow. That's a shame.
Yeah, well, that's the same in medicine. It's a sad thing. This we're
Hmm.
not going to go down that track. We'll stay on the golf course and keep healthy. Yeah, yeah.
So when you're tell the dates again that you're going to be in Hilton Head. I briefly touched on them when we started, but so everybody out there who's listening, because this is going to come out Sunday morning, so well in advance of you coming here. So give the dates because you're going to be in Hilton Head, and then give the dates for Phoenix for anybody listening
On that
on
side.
that part of the
Yeah.
country.
Right, yeah, it's going to be the first school's on the 20th of March, goes 20th to the 24th, and then the next one's the next week, the 27th to the 31st of March, and then the Masters week. The Masters week's the next week. But I can't get a ticket to the Masters. No one's at this stage. I'm looking for a ticket. I'd go up to the Masters. I went up there when I was at Belfair, uh, but I only went up for the practice day. So I'd love to go to the Masters if someone's got a spare ticket. But
Well, I think is you're still Australian PGA. I think you get in for free.
no, you have to be a US PGA member. That's what happened to me.
Oh,
That's what happened to me last time. That's the story. I
hmm.
drove all the way up from Hilton Head, stood in the queue, got down to the front of the queue, and I got my PGA badge out. And the lady said, "I'm sorry, that's not American PGA." So I said, "Look, I was told." I rang up and I said, "The PGA." Said, "Yeah, but it has to be a US PGA." So,
Oh
so I
God.
turned around. I'm walking out, and my head's down. I'm thinking, "Oh boy, I got all the way up here," and I got to the front gate, and as I'm walking out, who starts walking in but David Ledbetter and Nick Price. And so David knew me, but he was busy. He was off and running. Nick Price said, "Oh, Peter, what are you doing here?" And I hadn't seen him since we both played playing in Europe in the 70s. So there's a guy, amazing. What a character, what a person he is.
Hmm.
I said, "Look, buddy," I said, I'm a bit down. I said, "I got all the way up here and I can't get into, I'm not a PGA, I'm not American." He's a PGA member. He said, "Oh," I said, "If you wouldn't have a spare ticket, would you?" He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, all my tickets are gone." He says, "I've got no ticket." But look, he said, "Hang on a second." He said, I've been up here a while. And he said, "I know the security guy. Come over with me." So he took me over to the main security guy and he told him the story. And the security guy was as friendly as one thing. He said, "Look, hop in the car here. I'll take you around." And he took me around, showed me a few different places. He said, "This is probably the best place to hop out." And so I had the day there. I didn't get. I'd love to get back there, but that's another story. So I've got the week spare, but if I can't get to the Masters because I can't get a ticket, I'll be in Hilton Head and probably with John McMahon. We're going to do two schools at Hilton Head National, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a more than likely we'll do a school at uh, the national. There's a country club at Hilton Head is where we're going to do the two schools, and
Right.
then Hilton Head National is Bob Walton we've got a chance to do it there, and we'll probably do the third one after the Masters there. And
And the best way for people to get more information or to sign up is through your website.
they just go on the website and Croker, CROK Golf System.com, and right on the front
And I'll
page.
have a link to that in a summary. I'll have a link
Yeah,
that so anyone wants to sign up, they can do that right through the website.
yeah, and also thanks to you, we're going to do a PGA a day through Corey over there at Secession. Is getting together. We're going to find a day so we can do a 1 day workshop for the PGA pros in the area.
Oh, perfect. I'm glad that worked out. Yeah, that they were much better off, or you're much better off getting with them than me. That they have that they're in charge of all that, and I'm very happy that that was able
Oh,
to work out.
it's underway. You know, I haven't. It's nothing in stone. It's like, but we've got we take six people in the school, and
Hmm.
we've got about 3 or 4 spaces left in each school. And those that would love to have them. And if you're there and we can't get you into the school, we're going to try to do some other special stuff. If I might even, if you put up with me, I might be able to come over to Old South because we were at Old South for a while too.
And it, as you post it to social media, your updates, we're friends on social media. We follow each. I'll be sure to push that through ours as well, so hopefully more people can see it, especially locally. And if there are openings that they can, for whatever reason, if they're doing it last minute, they can jump on and hopefully get in and learn more about laws of accuracy.
Yeah, look, I'm so excited because this is golf. My original development of the program, which was initially called Natural Golf, was to share it with golf coaches because uh, uh, people said to me, "Why don't you go out there and teach pros on the tour?" And that's the way to get famous and get this thing going. And I thought I was a tour pro, and you go with it. You can't really you just you can give a tip to a tour pro, and he'll play well. Like I gave this putting lesson in its simple form to a fellow called Vijay Singh in the year 2000. You know what happened in 2000 for Vijay Singh?
He won 9 times that year, I think.
He won the Masters. 2 weeks before the Masters, he sent his brother to our school to learn how to teach, but his brother had foot problems and he wasn't going to be able to play. He was at our school for 2 weeks of being there a month, and his feet all of a sudden repaired because he found that when he swung our way, there was less pressure on his feet, even though he was grounded, and so he went back playing. But Vijay, I helped Vijay with his putting, and he went out and putted the best he's ever putted in the Masters. And
Hmm.
I gave him a lesson at the TPC at Jacksonville a couple of weeks before on his driving. He was reverse. He was playing in Hawaii before that in the wind. He got himself out in front of it, so it was
Yep.
pretty simple to get him to turn behind it. But anyway, bottom line is this technique's been. People say, well, what tour pros? Well, Vijay Singh, Olin Brown, Grant Waite had lessons from me. Um, I, I've had quite a few guys that won majors have lessons and and take it and do well, but you're only giving them tips. So they've already got a coach, but it's, you got to dedicate yourself to, like Cole Swatton did for Jason Day. That was a magic team. And it's
Mm-hmm.
good to see Jason Day back. But way back, way back when he was a junior, my son caddied for him in one of his last amateur events that he won at the Dunes Club, which was my club in Melbourne on the peninsula. So Jason Day, again, there's another wonderful guy. They were playing in the President's Cup. We hadn't seen him for 8 years, 10 years. And we're in the gallery watching on the practice fairway, and he turns around, and Cole turns around. He says, "Oh, Peter, how are you?" And Jason says, "Oh, Ben, how you doing? What's you know what?" And they were just warming up for the President's Cup at Royal Melbourne. So good. It's but at that early days, I could see that Jason was going to hurt his back. He was going at it way too hard. But again, he's unbeknownst to him, he used the focus band to repair his game in shape. Once he applied the focus band to his game, it took him from number, I think, 39 or 37 in the world to number 1 within 6 months. Now, I was very lucky or privileged. I worked with Henry and Graham Bolton, who in the development of that focus band. They did all the heavy lifting, and I was one of their test pilots. And so the address routine and things like that, they got so it's an interesting journey.
Yeah, it is, and there's always it's like the amount of things out there that are becoming more useful or accelerating. You
Yes.
had to sift through a lot of things many years ago to get to the access to information wasn't there, and the sharing of information is much more prevalent nowadays. Many years ago, it used to be that coaches were afraid to call on another coach if their player was in their area and say, "Can you take a look at this fella?" Or if they were having trouble getting them to where they wanted to be, I have this young lady, she's playing LPGA. Can you give a look to see what? Because I'm not seeing something. It's like they were afraid to lose their students, but nowadays it's they're more apt to be dedicated to making that person as best they can. And if that means reaching out to a friend or colleague and say, "I need you to look at this and see what you think, because I value your opinion," that seems to be a little more prevalent nowadays than it did 10 or 15 years ago
Yeah,
or longer.
it's a good thing. So yeah, and
Yes, very good thing.
the game is, you're here for a lifetime in it, so you might as well share the journey with, and like there's a saying, there's more pay for team play. It's the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're all connected. Whether we like it or not. Some people I don't really want to be connected to, but and but and probably there's a lot of people who don't want to be connected to me, but that's different. See, when you're a paradigm shifter, I a fellow called Joel Barker. Have you heard of Joel Barker?
I
He wrote
haven't, no.
he wrote the book the Business of Paradigms, and did a video. He had a videotape that cost $900 US. Just a VHS tape he sold for $900, and I bought one because it was so powerful. It talks about shifting power, and and this what we did with, and Joel Barker was doing a gig down in Singapore when our book came out in 1995, and so he hopped on a plane and came down to Sydney come down to Queensland, to Australia, I think, looking for me. Anyway, I was in America, but he finished up. He finished up with one of my good teachers, a friend who's passed away since, Paul Hart. But when he got back to America, we caught up, and he actually, there's a lot. So I don't have enough time to tell that story, but fantastic. He said, paradigms. He says, when you're a paradigm pioneer, he says you just don't want to get distracted by those that knock you. He says, unfortunately, you come along with something that's like this that works, and there's always room for improvement. You never stop. Like our program today is so much more powerful than it ever was when I got the cover of Golf Digest.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to share it with the golf coaches. It's so, and I do know from our experience, all the coaches when we started, the reason we got cover of Golf Digest in Australia, the coaches, we had 134 pros go through my program for 4 days. I think every one of them went back, and within 6 weeks, they'd more than doubled their teaching income.
Wow.
But isn't it crazy? I wasn't around, and we didn't have the organization to do all the quality control. And as when you run a business, you got your quality control division must be, and you got to look out, you got to service people. So we grew too quickly. And I'm just one, I've got a small quality team now, and with the internet, it's so much easier. But it's a journey. You need quality control. We all need coaching, and we can help each other. That's the beautiful thing.
Yes, Elaine, keep growing. That's very important.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to catching up with you in person.
Same here, Peter. I very much enjoyed this time and look forward to a couple of weeks when you get here. I know you've got another appointment. I'll let you get running. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up again on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's PARADIGM, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Lowcountry. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353.